webinar on automation of voluntary deregistration. We're so glad you can join us today. My name is Shani Kelly, and I am from the Corporate Education and Compliance Unit. I will be your moderator today. I am delighted to be joined by Advocate Krista Kloko and her team. After, after Advocate Kloko's presentation, we will have a question and answer session. Please feel free to write your questions on the comments section as you listen to the presentation. Also note that the presentation has been uploaded on the chat. About the presentation and recording, our new system will automatically email you a link. But if you register for this webinar only, if you join through our social media pages, you won't get a link via email. So please visit the CIPC website to access the presentation and the recordings. Just a brief note before we start. Don't forget about our free Learn IBIS directed e-learning program. Anyone can enroll for this program, and the link is on the CIPC's web page. Right at the bottom of the homepage, feel free to explore it yourself and share it with anyone who might benefit from this course. I now hand you over to Advocate Kloko. Good day, Advocate. How are you this fine Tuesday afternoon?
Good afternoon, Shani and colleagues on the line, and also all our customers. I'm doing fine, considering that we're finally getting to the end of the year. So let me dive in. Um, we have Meshach Maluleke as assisting on the chat. He is the team leader responsible for company and CCD registration at the CIPC. So please feel free to actually post your inquiries relating to the presentation, please. We are limited, the questions needs to be limited to the presentation at hand. He will answer it as best as he can. And then at the end, we will just quickly go through and see whether there's any general questions. So let me dive in. So today, as Shani has introduced, we are talking about the automation of the voluntary deregistration process. Now, just before we start, just an apology in advance. We do try to provide advance notification to customers of a new release so that they can prepare for it. Unfortunately, we got pressurized into completing this item. We've completed all our governance cycles. We've done the testing of the system before the release. We were pushed to actually do it because we're going into a freeze period. So we do want to apologize. There was not an advance notification of the release of the system. So just that apology. All right. What's the objection of automation? So it's very important to understand why we are automating and what is the benefit of automation of the CIPC services, not just companies and CCs, but also co-ops. So it's part of our CIPC strategy to automate services and provide services on a more efficient platform. We all know in the voluntary deregistration, especially if you have submitted a deregistration under the old legacy system, it doesn't have any communication built into it. It is so old. When I started my career 20 years ago, that was the application or the service that was available. So we are moving a lot of our services to more efficient electronic platforms. It's also to improve communication to customers throughout the process, to reduce administrative errors and inquiries. The voluntary deregistration is a legacy system, and it was prone to errors, poor quality images, because there is a degradation of images if they are scanned by automated systems in order for processing. So this is going to reduce all of that as well. To improve our service turnaround times, we do better data collection and data control on the services that that a manual process do not allow for. It allows us to integrate with other data sources and to prove data quality overall into the registry. And we actually, part of our automation is to build self-service functions for customers so that you can help yourself. You don't always have to ask us for the documentation. So the scope of the automation was, it was released on the 8th and from that date, any manual applications will not be received by the mailbox. So we've basically deactivate the mailbox. You'll get an auto reply from the mailbox to say, please use one of the electronic services because we're not going to process it manually. What we have to note here is that as part of our migration strategy, we're moving from our old databases to new database structures. So we cannot migrate information from the old system while it's still in process onto the new system. So matters that were in the process before the release of the new system, unfortunately needs to be finalized under the old system. And I know the old system has got a lot of challenges with it, but we'll try to assist you as much as we can until we have cleaned out all of those matters. Right. Another benefit of this is that the commencement and the final deregistration is fully automated. So that means that there's no back office intervention to look at your application or to actually go and manually go and trigger the system to prepare the final deregistration. So it's fully automated. The system does everything, with us doing an oversight and control regarding data, customer inquiries, and the application functionality. But we'll get into that a little bit in more detail as we go through. Right, before we start with the requirements for voluntary deregistration, please note that although a service is automated, there's always conditions and requirements that needs to be applied. Just because we make it look easy to use does not mean that there is not a legal impact or things that needs to be considered before submitting the application. So we're quickly going to go through those. Right, conditions for deregistration. The entity must have ceased operations and hold no assets or liabilities to qualify for deregistration. That is a legal requirement in terms of the Companies Act. It says that a company should have ceased operations, or because of the inefficiencies of its assets, it cannot be liquidated. So those are clear conditions. Also, those that have been customers of the CIP for a while would also know that a deregistration means that there is an empty shell. We are basically, the corporate entity, the corporate vehicle is empty and it ceased to operate. It doesn't have any assets or liabilities and therefore applied to be deregistered. So meaning that all the matters surrounding the company and the CC should have been finalized before you submit the application. What's also very important to note, if there was an oversight, and please note, we do get this, we get regular complaints from SARS and the banks, that directors and members think they can abscond from their liabilities and responsibilities from their creditors if they apply for deregistration. That is incorrect in law. Even if the company and CC is finally deregistered, it stops existing. The directors that was active and the members that was active at the time of final deregistration is liable, personally liable for all matters relating to that company that happened while they were a fully appointed director. So you can never get away from any liability and responsibility. So if, for example, you get finally deregistered, SARS comes like, but you're trying to avoid tax here. SARS is not going to come for the company or the CC itself because the legal personality does not exist. It's going to come for you personally and it exposes you to lose your assets. So please be mindful about that. Further, just because this is electronic, a fully automated service, does not mean that what you submit has not got no legal consequence, especially if you're an intermediary as well. If the person who submitted incorrect information on the CIPC systems, manually, a document, through our online platforms, you can be held liable for submitting false information to the CIPC, and we can take you to court for it. So please double check and make sure, especially if you're an intermediary as well, that your customers and your clients have finalized all their matters, because you cannot say, oh, but my client or the director told me to do it that way. You need to do the insurance, because you, as the filer, the one person that submits the information, can also be held responsible. So you need to have decent checks and balances in place. Also, just note that only authorized individuals to the company or CC can apply, unless a third party can apply, but they need to have the permission of the company to do so. So, for example, I'm going to pick on Meshach. So Meshach is the member of the closed corporation, and I am not happy with his conduct. I am a creditor or a service provider, it doesn't really matter. I cannot now go and apply for deregistration for his company because I'm unhappy. Because why? The law says the company needs to make the decision in order to deregister. Only the company can make sure that it's an empty shell at deregistration, etc. So just take note of that. What statuses are allowed to file for the voluntary deregistration? So if you have got an in-business status, an O3 status, or even if you're an AR deregistration, annual return deregistration, the system will allow you to file the voluntary deregistration. In the case of our AR deregistration, the system will then switch over to a voluntary, and then the voluntary process will start from anew once it's triggered. And all company and closed corporation types are allowed to file on this platform, even external companies. External companies just have got like two additional fields that they have to provide for us, but all types of companies and closed corporations can apply via this electronic platform. The service is also available on the BIS portal. E-services is for intermediaries, because intermediaries cannot file on BIS portal, and then also our self-service terminals. The cost of a voluntary deregistration, it is free of charge. So you don't pay for anything upon it. Then we also have to note, even under the old system, the current manual system, voluntary deregistration is a two-step process. Step one is the commencement of the voluntary deregistration process. That's automated and that's immediate. As soon as you've verified the OTPs, the status will update and the notifications will go out. Then there's a waiting period, currently under the old manual system. It is 4 months, but with this automation, we have now shortened it. We can now do it in 2 months because we don't have manual interventions and staff that has to print. We call it spoeg and plak. Before we actually literally printed thousands, 8 to 10,000 letters every 2 weeks that we had to put in envelopes. And that's why it took 4 months, because we needed time to post all of these documents and get them into the post office system. So it's going to be 2 months. If there is no objection, remember, you cannot hide from your creditors or your service providers through deregistration. So therefore, this process allows them to object to the voluntary deregistration in order to protect their rights. If there is no successful objection, then the system will finalize the voluntary deregistration. It will go into final deregistration again, and that's automated and all the notifications will go out. But we'll discuss some of these items now going forward. Right, so let's get to the nuts and bolts of how the system looks like. What I've done is I've made screenshots that is based on the step-by-step guide that has been published for step-by-step to submit. On the right-hand side, I've made some there's like bubbles as to key elements that you have to take note of. Remember, just because it's automated does not mean there's no rules and legal requirements applicable. Right, let's go to login. Our login is the standard. I'm not going to delve onto that. As to how the login works, most of you should be familiar with it. So once you have logged in, you will go to the main service options. You click on more services there at the bottom, and then it will take you to that. Please note the reason why the screen has got a more services element is because the other services that's listed there is still built on an older electronic platform. The more services is built on another electronic platform that we have, and that's why the dashboards makes a distinction between more services because it's the newer versions, and then the ones submitting there is under the another electronic platform. So that's why we have it. We are picking up clients or asking us about it, and that's why I just quickly want to clarify. Right, so you click on more services, then you'll select the service from this. You'll select companies and CC voluntary deregistrations. It's under the main business maintenance at the bottom. All right, so now let's start with the service. So once you click on the service, you're going to get the terms and conditions. Very important, and I'm sorry that I'm sounding like I'm stuck on this. It's extremely important that you read the terms and conditions and confirm that you've got a mandate in order to submit. Basically, we are storing that information. So if there's issues, we're going to hold the person that filed liable because you have confirmed that you have got a mandate. So this is a type of electronic, fully automated mandate and not necessarily a paper document. So we've taken the paper document mandate and we're putting the liability and responsibility back to you as the filer to take accountability for what you're filing. So read it, you agree, and then you say continue. I'm quickly going to go through the terms and conditions. As I stated, it's very important. So first one is, it's the standard. It's a criminal offense to lie to this, to submit false information to the CIPC. A company or a closed corporation may apply for voluntary deregistration if the company or closed corporation has ceased all business operations and has no assets, or due to the inadequate assets, there's no reasonable probability of liquidation. I know it sounds very technical, but that's the wording within the Act. And this also includes cases where the entity has never traded or has no outstanding liabilities. Then you can apply for deregistration. Remember, deregistration, empty shell. The company CC must be empty, nothing in there in order to apply for deregistration. Before continuing, ensure that all affairs of the company or closed corporation have been properly finalized. Directors and members understand that they may be held personally liable for any unresolved matters after deregistration. So the filer actually confirms that the directors understand the consequences as well. Then the mandate, by clicking, I see I used I used a bit of Afrikaans there. You are basically confirming that you've got a necessary mandate in terms of the regulations in order to submit it to the CIPC. Right. Just another key one as well. If you note through the application, there's a lot of red notes. Basically, through most of the steps, you'll basically confirm that the company, the directors have dealt with their matters and they understand that they can be held personally liable. So that's why these are just as a separate note of it. All right, so after the mandate, we can go to the new application. So you can click either on to start a new application, you click on new voluntary deregistration. Then you're going to have the button of new application and you click on that. Sorry, I didn't provide every page of the website into a separate slide of the presentation. It just makes it easier for referencing purposes if we combine like-to-like activities. You'll then be able to, you'll have the enterprise number search bar. You can type in there the full registration number, which is the year, the middle part, the sequence, and then the type at the end, or you can use the B, M, and K. We are going to start phasing out the referencing to the K and the B because it's technically not correct. It's just an internal way of storing our data, but the system will allow you to do the search on both. All right, Just to note, if the company or CC is already in deregistration, meaning it already has got an O8 status, not whether then it's an application pending somewhere in queue, as to when the status has changed to O8, the system will block and give a message to say this company cannot file. Also, if the company is in business rescue, in liquidation, there will be a message to appear that the application cannot be done. Remember, only in business or in ARD registration can apply. Then you're going to get confirm the details. So it will give you the enterprise name, registration number, the type of business, and the current status. Then it's going to give you the director information. It is masked. The reason why that is provided, because we need consent via OTPs. You will have to check that we have got all the contact details. If the system picks up that there's outstanding or missing contact details, the system will throw out an error, or not an error, a validation message to say, go and update the contact details. So all enterprise contact details must be up to date for the directors and members before you can proceed. Again, there's just a note regarding liabilities and responsibilities of the directors, and you'll say confirm. Then there's three main components to the application. As I stated, one of the objectives of automation is to collect more information for statistical purposes. So you'll have to do the industry from the drop-down. We would like to know at the time you in the company or CC apply for deregistration, in what industry it was operating. Government is very interested to know when new businesses are coming up and what industries and when they're going down. So we as CEPs have started to collect more statistical information on our processes. Then we need to know the address at the time of final deregistration. Very important. The system will not block you if there's a difference between this address and the registered address on the system. We would just like to know where this business was located at the time of deregistration. Then there's something that they're going to get. Hopefully you can see it clearly. It's something called the assets and liability checklist. In order to help directors, and this is not a complete list of things that needs to be resolved. These are the bigger ticket items. There's a checklist as to whether the company has any outstanding assets or liabilities. Is their matters up to date with their bank, with SARS? Does it have immovable property? Does it have movable property, etc.? So this check is basically there to help the directors to navigate what they have to check for before they can apply for voluntary deregistration. Remember, this is not the beginning and the end all of what can be happen. It's just a check to see. And then again, you've got the red message that directors can be held personally liable. So just to quickly to confirm why we have some of these things. So we have to confirm the company details as to whether the contact details are up to date. If not, a Core 39 or a CK2 must be submitted and processed before continuing. Location verification, we use digital or Google Maps in order to clean up the data and how data on addresses are structured. So you need to provide that. And then we've got the assets and liability checklist to help directors to navigate what they have to look out for. Again, just the red message. So once you've continued from here, the system you will then have to click on the confirmation of consent page, which directors or active directors or members have consented to the voluntary deregistration. We need to have a 50% positive of the active directors or members confirming via OTP that they have agreed to it in order to start the process. So from that list, you will select which directors have given consent. You can tick all of them if all of them have agreed, but the minimum is 50%. And then you'll say continue. The system will then automatically send the OTPs out, and then you'll have to, and there's OTP emails that goes out. Then the directors and active members will get the OTPs with the ones that was selected. You'll go back into the system and then provide the director's ID number, the person to whom the OTP was issued, and then you'll provide the OTP. Very important, we don't require both the SMS and the email OTP. We just require either one of the two. So once all the OTPs have been agreed, you'll get this message to say that it's consented, and then Bob's your uncle. As soon as you've finished up the OTP verification, the OTP approval, the company or CC is placed in voluntary deregistration. The system will then affect a status change to 08, the voluntary deregistration status. Emails are sent to the applicant, the person who submitted the application to start the voluntary deregistration. It will go to all active directors, regardless of who ticked to say who consented. Because remember, if there's a director that did not consent to it, we need to give them an opportunity. Also remember that this information goes to the banks, SARS, and other regulators and other economic key points in the economy. And if you've got outstanding matters, they can object and we will consider their objection. So that's the start of the process. So now, let's say, for example, there's no objection that's being filed. Within 2 months, the system will then automatically place this company into the 09 status, which is final deregistered, and the company or CC cease to exist. Once it goes into final, again, the filer will get notification that the process has been finalized. There's a final deregistration letter that will go out with it. All the active directors and members will also get the notification that this deregistration is now finalized. But let's pick on Meshach again, right? He applied for voluntary deregistration. Now, I'm not happy because I picked up that he owes me 2 million rand in debt, and he thinks, sorry, Meshach, he thinks that he can hide from his obligations by deregistration. Now, I can pick up on any of the CIPC data sources if it's in 08, involuntary deregistration, that, he owes me money. I want to object to this process because I want to protect my legal rights. And that's the purpose of the objection process. All right. I've already dealt this, my apologies, and the reason why. I'm going to come back to that page. So now I can go onto the system. Again, I go onto the services, company and CC deregistrations. I go through the mandate, and then I will click on voluntary deregistration objection. I will then see a list of the matters that I have objected to. So let's say I've objected to multiple companies, it will reflect under the history. But this is my first time of objecting. So I will then click on new objection and then again provide the enterprise number in the search bar. My apologies, I can see with a white background, and because our web screens are to be more appealing and easy to read, it's white, it does not quite clear. So, but anyway, there is a step-by-step guide for which it's more clearer. Okay, again, you can search with your full registration number or the shortened version of it. Now, very important to the objector, we are not going to take any objection willy-nilly, because we know as CIPC that sometimes people can object for things that they think is important, but there's other remedies in law or it's not really valid, right? And that's because not everybody understands everything. Therefore, there must be an objection reason. It does have a spell checker, so you can spell check it. We need the reason for the objection. For example, I will say, Company X owes me 2 million rand in outstanding debt. Okay, that's my reason. But now, just giving a reason is also not sufficient. You need to prove what you're alleging, because otherwise anybody can go and object to a deregistration and it will become a bit messy. So you need to have a valid objection reason, and then you need to submit proof of it. So then you will click on continue. You will then, sorry, I didn't have that screen. You will then go and upload. The system will allow you, you will select the nature of who you are. Am I a creditor? Am I a director? Am I a member? Other. You'll have to upload a certified ID copy or passport. We need to know who the objector is and whether it's a legitimate person. And then you need to submit evidence. Now, the evidence can take any form to support your reason. Currently, we do not have a list of known objections. This is an enhanced functionality. So as of time, we will update and populate. But please note that objections is very specific. We can't really give you a list of choose one. It will be based on the circumstances. So once you have submitted the objection, um, it gets clicked. The objection does not immediately cancel the deregistration. It will go to the back office and we will see whether it's a valid objection or not. Now, let's say, for example, we then, for example, decline the objection to say, listen, it's not a valid thing. But the objector feels adamant that there's a good reason for it. Then this slide becomes very important. It's not CIPC's responsibility to resolve the reasons why the company wants to go into deregister and the reasons for the objector. We are just trying to provide a flexibility for objectors and for the companies itself, but the ultimate resolution. So if we cancel the objection, say, listen, it's not a valid reason. You that has got an objection needs to contact the company and go sort out the reason for your objection with them. The reverse is also applicable. So let's say, for example, on the scenario between Meshach and myself, CIP said, listen, there's proof that Meshach owes money and it's relevant. We are going to then approve the objection and the status will automatically go back into business 03. And we've got notifications that goes out. So the directors or the members of the company that applied for the objection, it's not, again, CIPC is not going to be your adjudicator on it, needs to take the matter up with the objector. So we provide full communication. If there's an objection submitted, again, the filer of the voluntary deregistration, as well as the active directors gets notified that we've received an objection. They also get notified of the outcome of the objection. So let's say there is now a dispute on the deregistration. You can go to the company's tribunal or any other forum based on the legislation that was contravened to resolve the matter. Once it's resolved, you can come back, the company can come back and apply for deregistration. And that's why I'm focusing at the beginning of the presentation, why it's so important that you make sure that your matters is resolved before applying for deregistration. It is very, very important. Almost done. So we've now gone through on the new filing to start the process. We've discussed when it goes to final, and we've discussed the objection process and how that works. So let's say now, let's go into the self-service download. We all know, especially if you're a regular client with the CIPC, the access to the deregistration final letters is horrendous. Again, it's because it's a legacy system. And we can't deal with the volumes throughout. So what we have done, we have provided a self-service download, the same that we have done with AR deregistration. So how do you access your documentation as the filer or the applicant to the voluntary deregistration? This is also available to the active directors and members to download. So you go back into the service, you select company and CCD registration, do the mandate. Once you get to the dashboard, it will show you all the matters that was filed under your name. So if the OTP has been verified, that's when the application is done. You'll click on the little hand. The hand will then ask you, do you want to do the OTP or do you want to download your documents? You will then click on the download your documents and process. It will then provide you a dashboard of all the letters that was issued to the different people on the process. Also very important, it is free of charge, available for the first 6 months after final deregistration. Thereafter, you will be charged, after the 6 months, you will be charged 30 Rand in order to get access to those letters. The reason for this is CIPC is not the record keeper or the location of records for companies and CCs. That is the duty of the company and the CC to keep their own documents and also to make sure that they immediately finalize their paperwork. Even after 20 years, people or 10 years, people still are, oh, I've never downloaded the letter. You're supposed to have kept it. Okay. So after 6 months, you will be charged 30 Rand. Right, so manual deregistration versus electronic. I have touched on this, and this is very important because we already have voluntary deregistrations under the old system. And as I stated, we cannot migrate from the old system the information to the new database. So this is just to help you to manage the process, how to identify which process was triggered. So if the date of commencement of the deregistration is before 5 December, remember we've switched the system off in order to load the application on the 5th, then it's under the old system. If it's after 5 December, then it's on the new system. You can also check that under free enterprise search on the BIS portal. If you look at the history, it will reflect under the history the date when the deregistration started. If you have started receiving all these communication as a director and as a filer, thank you for submitting your application. Here's your reference. Here's your deregistration notification. Then immediately you know it's a new system. The old system does not have that communication structures. So immediately if you start seeing communication going about, you know you're under the new system. And also for those that know, if you were done on the manual, your tracking number or reference number will start with the 1. And in terms of the new database that this transaction is running on, it will start with the 6. So your reference number will also tell you whether it's an old or a new process. So we do know that under the old system, it takes about 4 months because of the printing, etc. So as soon as the system allows us to trigger the notification to clear them out, we will do that. But also remember, one of the key challenges that we're having under the manual deregistration system or the old system is that it sometimes skip the deregistrations. We've been trying to investigate this and then we sort it and then it just comes back. So you may find a gap that it doesn't go into final. Please notify us by logging an inquiry on the relevant inquiry platform for deregistration that we can look at it and then trigger it to get it final. Also very important to note that there is a block on the electronic system, as I stated. If the company status is already 08, the system will block a new application coming in. Then it must be cleared under the old system. There's also a block under the old manual deregistration service that if it's already in an 08 status, you can't place it in again. So there is blocks to minimize that duplicate applications under the old and the new system gets implemented. But unfortunately, the manual deregistration service is a legacy system. It's really a legacy system. And therefore, there may be a gap whereby 2 applications have submitted. Once again, if that is picked up, please notify us via the dedicated inquiry mailbox and we will address it from there. Right, let's quickly go through what is available for inquiries and inquiry assistance and resources. So for now, while we don't have an electronic inquiry system, it's inquiries deregistrations at cipc.co.za. Deregistrate at CIPC, that's the application mailbox, is blocked for incoming applications, and there is an auto reply to use the new system. And then the additional resources that we have is Practice Note 2 of 2012, is withdrawn. We're just waiting for the publication for the withdrawal. But because the system is now so basic in terms of the Companies Act, we are not going to issue now a new practice note as to new requirements. As I stated, the additional things that we have there is statistical information that we want. Then there's the release notice under general notices. That the release notice has also been distributed on all our social media platforms. A step-by-step guide has been prepared. Please remember it's the first version of it. So as we pick up questions, we will adapt and update the step-by-step guide. The FAQs on the website has been updated, and then you've also now got this webinar. And that brings me to the end of my presentation. My apologies if it took so long, but there's different elements, and we need to make sure that you as the customer understand what you let yourself in for once it is submitted. I'm going to stop sharing now, and then we can go into a bit of Q&A. Okay. Let me quickly see the type of questions that has been going. Yes, Leon, hopefully the process is now simple and efficient. My apologies, I'm just quickly going through. Oh, there was a lot of hellos. Okay, where to find the presentation? The presentation has been uploaded to the beginning of the chat. Those that have registered for the webinar will get an automatic notification, and then also those that joined us on our social media platforms needs to download it through all the different other platforms. All right, Karen is asking, why does the deregistrate not update automatically at SARS? Please note that we as the CIPC do inform SARS and the Central Supplier Database and other people, key regulators, of every change that is happening on our side. The challenge that we're having is that because that SARS has got so many duties and so many processes and also so many systems, they have not yet, the word is ingest, our information on deregistration to automatically not to ask for the final deregistration letter or to update their processes. But that is an ongoing discussion that we have with SARS in order to start using the data more accurately to minimize certain things that's happening. Maybe if you want to push SARS in order to bring certain projects of theirs up to date or to push this, you're more than welcome to. But they do get the data. It's just that they've also got so many projects that they have to decide which ones are priority. All right, so we don't have the tax and it's not functioning. The status is final zero. How can my name be deleted? All right. Zolasile, as I stated, your name can never be deleted from a deregistered company because you have bound yourself for the rest of your life to that company and CC. It is due to the legal working that directors are held personally liable and can be held personally liable even after final deregistration. So therefore, we don't update your status. We can put in inactive, but it doesn't change the law. Right. Okay. Right. Sorry, I'm just scanning very quickly through. What if one of the directors are deceased? As we pointed out, we need to, your director's information and contact details must be up to date before you can file for deregistration. Therefore, so if the director is deceased, you need to submit your Core 39 and update the records before you can submit the voluntary deregistration. All right, again, this is data. So all our data is published on our enterprise search. We are trying to phase out the actual GG publications because it's a mess to actually search them, but all the data is available for live searches. Right. How does deregistration work for shelf companies? Firstly, shelf companies, when you bought a shelf company, you need to make sure that you've updated the CIPC of the contact details and the new directors and addresses. So in our law, there's no distinction between a shelf company and a normal company. It's still a company. Therefore, you have to make sure that the contact details, directors, and members are up to date before you submit. So there's no distinction as to the requirements for a shelf company or a normal company. All right, Maureen is asking, how long does it take to start the process? It is immediate. To complete the deregistration process, it's 2 months, provided that there's no objection received. So that is the period. All right, Yamna, please, you know the answer to this. If your AR final deregistered, you legally do not exist anymore. You cannot now change it to a voluntary deregistration. The entity does not exist in law. If the company is really hammering about the reason for deregistration, they can apply for reinstatement, provided they meet the conditions for reinstatement, which is going to cost them a lot of money in order to apply for a voluntary. So your AR deregistration final, legally nothing can happen on it. Brunel is asking whether there's a mandate document. Google. A mandate is a mandate is a mandate in law. A mandate is giving authority for one person to do X, Y, and Z. The internet is fully aware of it, and I know that in BO, they have created templates. You can piggyback on one of those and just update it if it's for voluntary deregistration. But please note the internet is full of examples of matters. And remember that mandate is for your records because you submit an electronic mandate on our site. All right, Karen, I've already answered the regarding a deceased directors. Update the registry before you start the process. To Lalani, to update the contact details of directors, do the directors have to create a CIPC profile? You have to follow the relevant process for the directors. There is sub-processes. I cannot tell you which ones to use. It will depend on the circumstances as to the type of director amendment process that you're going to use. Bongani, what happens when you're done deregistering the company? It's done. Legally, it does not exist, but you are still liable as a director up until your death for any liabilities that is outstanding. So once it's deregistered, whether it's AR or normal, you cannot submit anything on that company or CC until there's a reinstatement. Right. All right, Portia, I tried to deregister 2 companies yesterday and the system came back with an error message, not eligible for voluntary deregistration. Again, because the companies or CCs are probably already in voluntary deregistration under the old system, please go do a check of the status to check the status whether it is in liquidation, in voluntary deregistration, final deregistered. That's always our advice. Before you start a process, check the status on the free enterprise searches or the BIS profiles to check what it is. Bonnie, from the bank, a bank confirmation letter similar to audit can be obtained. Okay, I'm not quite sure what that means. All right. Right, we've answered what's the duration allowed for objection. For currently, it's set for 2 months. The regulation says a minimum of 20 business days. We're trying to get everybody on board to the objection process and this new enhanced process. So that's why it's currently 2 months. Must these CIPC annual returns be up to date? Louise, at the beginning we said that even if you're on AR deregistration, you can file for the voluntary deregistration. The system will switch it from the AR voluntary to the normal voluntary deregistration process. Right. I think a lot of the conversations now seems to look like conversations between yourselves, which is great. It's great when customers actually help each other regarding the processes. Right, there's a lot of questions regarding deceased directors, so as I've indicated that already. Okay, we've already answered that. We've already answered the mandate. Ahmed is asking how the process of voluntary liquidation works. That information is under our website. Please go under maintain your business, select the type of business, and then click on the link for liquidation. It will provide it for you. Fatima, if you are deregistered, remember it's two different regulators. If we deregister the corporate entity, it does not mean that the legal obligations has been closed on SARS side, because SARS is about tax collection. So therefore, there is no automatic completion because ours are the corporate entity and these are a process that needs to be that must be finalized. So you take your final deregistration letter, then you go to SARS in order to finalize what the SARS obligations or basically the different tax registrations that there is. All right. Can a third party? Yes, Sherry. If they've got a mandate from the company itself to say that they can do it, then basically if there's a mandate from the company to a third party, it basically becomes a company, the company itself that is applying for deregistration. Right, we're not dealing with reinstatements. Santi is asking whether the old system, we send out the final deregistration letters. Remember, this is, Santi, we cannot migrate the data from the old system to the new system. So if you've got a final deregistration under the old system, you will not be able to download the letter from the new system. The entire process should have started under the new system and be finalized under the new system in order for you to get access. That's unfortunately one of the downsides with us migrating our databases. All right, Linda, you noted you want to deregister a cooperative. Please contact the cooperative unit for assistance. It is co-ops falls under another set of legal regime and resides under another department within the CIPC. You have to contact them directly for the process. All right, I think that brings me to the end. It seems like the same questions are now coming forward. Shani and Meshach, unless I've missed something that we may need to clarify, I'm going to open up the floor for yourselves for possible questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Advocate. No, I do think we have covered all the questions that are on the chat. I'm sure that Meshach will intervene if there's anything that we haven't touched on. Okay, is there any closing remarks that you would like us to do before we end the sessions, Advocate?
Not from my side, so please go back to the information, the release notice, the FAQs, and this presentation itself. A lot of the questions that you have asked is actually there. And then, of course, if you've got any further questions, you can go and submit an inquiry to inquiry deregistrations. Just be mindful because we're now running two systems and it's a new system. Although we have not picked up any issues as yet, please know that and it's December, unfortunately, so we're all going on leave, most of us. We have scanners and staff, so just be patient with your inquiries. I know it's an uncomfortable time of the year to release this into the end of the year and people want to finalize, but just bear with us. So far, we've not received any complaints regarding the voluntary deregistration, the start of the process. So that is a good sign. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Advocate. Okay. This brings our session to an end. On behalf of our entire team, thank you for your time and attention today. We hope you found the presentation valuable. Please remember the Learn IBIS program. It is available on the CIPC website. Until next time, stay safe, and if you're driving in the storm, please be careful. Enjoy the rest of your day. Goodbye.